Hello, and welcome to Presenting, a podcast where we chat about various topics related to role-playing games, typically Paizo products such as Pathfinder and Starfinder, but also others. I'm John Godek. With me today is Shan Wolf. Welcome to the podcast.
Woo! What's going on? How's it going, John?
It's going well. It's going well. Thanks so much for doing this, man.
Yeah.
So, Shan is a freelance game designer and author. He has authored works for Pathfinder 2nd Edition and Starfinder, and is especially interested in Black and Indigenous representation,
Yes.
monster and archetype creation, history and lore, and writing revolutionary or inherently anti-colonialist themes.
Yes.
His credits include Starfinder Bounty Number 4, The Poacher's Prize, the Adventure Toolbox for Drift Hackers AP Number 1, the Ports of Call Starfinder hardcover, the Adventures Toolbox for Strength of Thousands AP Book Number 2, and the upcoming Highhelm Lost Omens Sourcebook due out in June of 2023. I didn't even know it was coming out until I looked up your information.
Yeah,
I saw
right?
this thing was
Oh,
coming.
I am so hyped for that book. Oh, you have no idea. I'm a
Yeah, I'm
huge.
stoked.
Oh, God. All right. I don't want to
No, what?
interrupt your questions, but my brain is like, oh my God,
Oh,
I can't
well, you know what? We're going to get into that, and we might as well get into that right now.
wait.
So
All right.
I
Let's
know
go.
you can't go into any specifics,
Mm-hmm.
but what does the Lost Omens Highhelm book go into? I have some guesses, just because the helm word in there, but
So a lot of what I have in my brain, I'm taking from sort of the marketing copy. So take that as
right.
you will.
Oh,
Right.
that's what you're supposed to do, right? You're supposed to take it
Well,
from the
yeah,
marketing
I'm not.
copy.
I'm not. I don't. Honestly, the only spoilers I have are my sections, so I can't even like drop any spoilers because somebody will be immediately like, "That was in Shan's section. Shan gave that away," so I'm not doing that. But
No, not asking for that. What's the book
but
about?
honestly, what it seems like it's about to me is the fact that Highhelm is a huge populous city for dwarves, and it's giving a lot of information that in second edition, we don't have a ton of information about dwarves, like at all.
Hmm.
Um, like we are basically bringing a lot of our information in from 1E, or we're bringing it in from D&D, or bringing it in from elsewhere. But ultimately, we do not have a lot of information about the daily life of dwarves who specifically are like under the mountain, that sort of thing. And based on my reading so far of like the marketing copy and that stuff, is that this is going to give you like a good picture of dwarven life, and that you can extrapolate for backgrounds. I mean, I'm pretty sure. I don't think it's a spoiler to say there's going to be feats in the book. But like,
Right.
there's going to be various things, new takes on just dwarven ideas and
Mhm.
how to make your dwarf as cool as possible.
Nice.
Um,
Nice.
yeah. So I I literally can't wait. There's a bunch of cool stuff that when I get my hands on that book, I'm pretty much gonna like lock myself in a room and just read it because I love dwarves. Like, they're dope. So yeah.
Nice. Yeah. It's interesting looking at a lot of the source books that they're doing. It's pulling a lot of stuff that we had in first edition
Mm.
and trying to, kind of bring it in. Maybe if there's some problematic things, get rid of it and do a little updating. But still, there's such a rich lore that Pathfinder has, and it's great that they're, bringing it all forward rather than saying, "Oh yeah, no, that was first edition. We don't do that now." It's like, no, this is how we talk about it. And I've been
Yeah.
fortunate to have worked on or some things that I can't talk about now that does something similar. And
Yeah.
so that I kind of know how the process works. So
Yeah.
awesome. Awesome. So,
I'm.
Shan,
Oh,
oh, go ahead.
oh no, I was gonna say, like, I will definitely say that it was probably the fastest assignment I ever completed. Uh, because I was given my assignment, and I was like, yes, I want every part of it. And I just started flying. Like the writing just kept going. So I was really into it. So I hope that enthusiasm comes through, and it gets people hyped for the book, and people are genuinely like, wow, this came through really, this came through really cool. So.
No, I'm looking forward. I've been mostly a Starfinder guy, but I get all the Pathfinder books, and I've been working on some Pathfinder projects. So it's I look forward to seeing all the cool stuff
Yeah.
that's coming and sharing some of the cool stuff that I can't even talk about because the books haven't even been announced.
I know, that's
It's
the
like,
worst. It is the worst. You're
it's
like,
like,
but
when they going to announce these things?
Yep.
Oh, sometime after Gen Con. What? That's like way down the road.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I was really excited that this was a June announcement. Something, they're getting closer to when they'll announce. I have 3 projects. When they'll announce my 3 projects. So.
Yep.
All right. So Shannon, can you talk a little bit about your journey to becoming a freelance author and game designer in the first place?
I've always kind of dabbled in game design. We're talking way back in the. I mean, put it like this. I started with, I think, 2nd edition D&D, because I think that was the version that was out when I was around age to start gaming. I started with some high school friends of mine, and it's been basically my driving hobby since that point, right? Like I was real big into the White Wolf oeuvre, like all of their stuff. Like I consumed all of it. And for me, I felt that gave me a good basis of, here's how you write rules, here's how you write monsters, here's how, here's the line of being an edgelord, and here's how not to cross it. Like being able to have horror or scary stuff in a game or in a setting without it going over into, trying to think of a good word, but maybe like inappropriate would be a good, inappropriate for your themes, and knowing how to track sort of what the theme of your given work is, and then focusing hard on it. After that, because I'd done like a bunch of playtest stuff. Like I playtested Exalted 3rd Edition. I playtested a bunch of like Mage of the Ascension books. Just again, like sort of within the White Wolf oeuvre. I know a lot of people within that environment who were like, "Hey, I need a playtester. You coming?" And I was like, "Yeah, I got you. Yeah, heck yeah, I'm playtesting it." So then after all that, I saw an open call one day. Somebody was like, "Hey, Shan, there's an open call for Pathfinder writers," and I was like, "You know what? Sure, let's see what happens." And I think I'm trying to remember exactly who it was who put out the open call, and my brain is failing me. One sec. Because it wasn't Jason Pullman. One sec.
What was the project that you ended up working on from that open call?
The first project I ended up working on was book 2 of Strength of Thousands.
Was it Luis?
No, it was not Luis in this case.
Okay, because I thought Luis was one of the ones that was doing the call for that.
No, and
I saw. I know Jake Tondra also posted about an open call for that as well.
Yeah, no, it wasn't Jake Tondra in this case. And oh my God. Like I know his name. It is literally on the tip of my tongue, and I can't, he's going to be so mad at me. It's fine.
Okay.
But anyway,
okay.
I responded to an open call, and like I gave my experience. I said, like, these are the areas that I've worked in before. This is the type of work I like to do. I have extensive experience in the 3.5 at the time, especially, I had a lot of experience in 3.5 and forcing 3.5 to actually work for me. So, like, once I got it sort of banged into shape, they happened to like what I was putting down and said, okay, well, like, we'll get you started on an assignment. And I said, cool, like, let's go. And it's just been bang on ever since. Like, I've just been, working on different stuff, making sure to contribute, working with different authors, and trying to be the best I can be.
Now, I'm curious now. I
Mm-hmm.
know my own experience. I've talked to other freelancers as well.
Yeah.
So, do you regularly contact developers and say, "Hey, I'm looking for work," or have they just said, "Hey, we want Shan," and they just constantly call you?
Well, what happens is, I mean, as per the normal freelance structure, I send in
Okay.
my availability
Yeah.
stuff. And, no, they're not banging down my door exactly. I'm not, I don't want to pretend that that's the case. Although, I wish it was. But,
Yeah.
but, they, when they have work, they say, hey, like, what are you thinking? And I'm like, yeah, I'll take that book. Yeah, I'll do
Yeah.
that because that sounds dope. That sounds really fun. Um, I would definitely say, like, Jessica Catalan was one of the ones who reached out to me. I think they were the most recent person who reached out to me for
Mhm.
books. And no, because they were before. Yeah. But Jessica, like, helped, like, blew my mind open by being like, well, here's a bounty.
Mhm.
Here's the information. Gave it to me nice and clear, just
Yeah.
perfect, like, bang on. Just, here's what you need to do. Here's what you need to do. Here's what you need to do. And I was like, yes, like, this. It felt so good. Because a lot of people, especially because the devs are so busy, they'll say,
Mhm.
like, okay, we don't have space to develop writers. Like, you have to sort of know what you're doing going in. And I felt like Jessica was like, nope. Nope, we're gonna teach you how to do this. And I was like, yay. I felt really good about that.
Yeah,
um
I like Jessica quite a bit.
yeah,
In terms of working with her as a dev and everything. So
yeah,
she gives
great
good
person.
feedback, good guidance and stuff. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly, very good feedback, very good guidance, helped me figure out exactly what I needed to do. So that was really cool because the monster creation stuff and all that
Yeah.
is very different from here's an entire here's an entire sandbox.
Mhm.
And even if that adventure is only an hour or two long, or like scenarios are like 4 hours long, I think,
Right.
you have to fill that up. And so you have to be careful about, like, okay, well, what am I putting in here? Um, what, is it going to jive with what the story is for the scenario? Is it gonna, that sort of thing? And I'm actually super interested in doing more scenario work, primarily
Mhm.
because, well, it looks fun. I don't have the same level of experience with, like, Pathfinder Society or Starfinder Society that
Right.
other people do. So
Yeah. Yeah, I
I'm
was gonna
working on it.
ask you that. I was gonna ask you if you do much organized play, so
Honestly, me and organized play tend to bounce off of one another, primarily because I like to rewrite scenarios.
oh, right, right, right.
So, and when you are in a scenario, when you're in a situation where, you're trying to do the scenario straight up, from what I've been advised, there's a lot of wiggle room. Like, you can mess with it a little bit, but you're supposed to really be going from sort of start to finish on what the scenario is. My games tend to be a little more freeform. I tend to do a
Mhm.
lot of house ruling and a lot of monster creation on the fly because
Mhm.
my brain goes, oh, well, they don't have zombies at 12th level. Well, I want a 12th level zombie. And then I figure out how to build a 12th level zombie in about 5 seconds when my players are like,
Yeah.
okay, so what's the, okay, I rolled a, knowledge check to figure out what this monster can do. What can it do? And I'm like, crap, and then I come up with something. So I would definitely say like my monster creation game has gotten a lot stronger. God, and it's had to. It's just had to, because I'm currently in 4 Pathfinder games right now.
Wow.
That's a lot of Pathfinder. I'm playing a lot of Pathfinder. And so, and 2 of the 3 of those I'm running? No. Yeah. 3 of those I'm running. And then there's 1 being run by a friend. But I am the like Pathfinder expert, so I'm helping them like bring up rules on the fly. No, 2 of them. Yeah, 2 of them I'm running. 1 of them I'm the like expert, and then 1 of them's just like a cool game where we're just chilling out and we can all sort of be evil gremlins, and the GM has to deal with our nonsense.
So, where do you live? Which area? I know you're East Coast.
I am currently in Michigan.
Okay.
Yeah.
So East Coast time, but not on the East Coast.
Yeah.
Which part?
I am Southern Michigan by Detroit. Not like in Detroit, like a bunch of people will be like, oh. But yeah, like it. Honestly, it's a great. I like this area quite a bit. I mean, I'm from New York, and that's where I mostly lay my head. Like when I can, I try to get back there. But I like this area. It's pretty nice.
I was just kind of curious about in-person gaming. So it's pretty prevalent there. You said you're in 4 groups, so.
Oh no! Honestly, most of my groups are online because I'm one of those people. I'm one of those people who is very COVID averse, and I have stuff going on that, I can't really risk like too much COVID. So, one of my games is me and my roommates, so that one is in person. But the other 3 are online. I've got players from Texas, players from, I think one of them's in Missouri. I think in my other one, there's players from South Carolina. Like, I like bringing people together in this hobby. And like, this is going to sound like I'm bootlicking a little bit, and I apologize, but like, Pathfinder and Starfinder are the type of games that, frankly, people want to play. I'm trying to get some people to try out Exalted and Savage Worlds, because Exalted is like my favorite RPG of all time, hands down. Like, I will fight people who say bad things about it. But like, even though I am very highly critical of the actual creators of Exalted, like the company around Exalted, I'm very highly critical of them. But the game itself was like, I can be super anime. Yes, I want to play this. Anyway,
I was just kind of wondering, in terms of, I'm kind of curious what play is like in different areas. I'm in the Seattle area, so there's a lot of gaming out here.
Oh yeah,
and I have a similar situation where I had a transplant during the pandemic, so I'm kind of immunocompromised here. But 3 of my groups are actually in person with a lot of the same people, and we're all of us have like concerns, so we're all just trying to be super careful, and lots of testing, and lots of I can't make it because I think I might have something kind of stuff. So I'll be glad when it gets back to normal. Exactly. We have this big bubble, and there's about 8 of us all together, and we kind of mix and match and play. And we have one person that doesn't feel comfortable playing in person, so we have an online game with them. So it all kind of works
that's really cool. And like that. Yeah. The only particular reason I think a lot of my games are online is because, one, I don't Pathfinder Society.
Right.
Really. I don't have the same drive to go out and be like, hey, y'all running Pathfinder Society tables? Do y'all need a venture captain? Blah blah blah. So that's number one, and number two, I have players who are so far flung that like who at least at one point were saying like, dude, I need a table. Like I need to like. It's been so long since I've played, and we're playing D&D, and it's fun, but I want to play something else. And I'm like, cool, you want to play Pathfinder? And they're like, yes. And I'm like, let's go. And then, I addict them to Pathfinder 2e because they're like, how does that ability work? That ability is so cool. And I'm like, yeah, you can read about it in this book or on the Archives of Nethys. Pluggity plug, I guess.
So you mentioned that you're the Pathfinder second edition expert in your groups and things.
Expert.
And you've written both for Pathfinder, now Starfinder as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What are some of the differences that you find, writing from one system to the other? And what are the challenges that you face personally switching back and forth?
I would say that for Pathfinder, I would say like the major difference between the two systems is understanding that Starfinder is basically a 3.5 riff. Mm-hmm. And while the same argument can be leveled at Starfinder is more of like sorry, I want to make sure I'm speaking correctly. Starfinder feels to me like a 3.5 riff that's got a little jazz on it. Got a little goodness on it that makes it a little bit better than the standard 3.5 stuff. Whereas Pathfinder 2e feels, at least in my head, like a complete revolution on the ideas that made 3.5 fun, with a little bit of like a sprinkle of 5e's. Like, okay, we're gonna limit some of these numbers so they don't feel so big, So I'm not swinging with a plus 40. Well, with a plus 40 the same way you would, back in. And so sort of the way I think about it is, I feel that Pathfinder 2e is mechanically tighter in terms of like, these rules have been given a certain amount of, but because a lot of the numbers have been shaved, that, when they say in Pathfinder 2e that plus one counts, like that plus one is very important.
Right.
I find that to be less important in Starfinder. But Starfinder gives me spaceships and mechs, dude. Like, what is that even? That almost doesn't feel like a contest. Like, it's almost not fair. I get spaceships and mechs. Although, to be honest, and I will crow this until the cows come home, I need more Starfinder games because I'm not. I mean, the answer is, until I get a level 1 to 20 campaign run for me, I'm going to always say I've never played enough Starfinder. So until, so I've got to, I want a lot more Starfinder in order to really feel as secure as possible when I'm writing books for it and when I'm writing story for it. Because it can feel very, very different than Pathfinder can. So,
no, I think your characterization seems to be spot on in my take as well. And I'm in the opposite boat, where I've done lots and lots of Starfinder, and I've done lots and lots of D&D, third edition in particular, and some 3.5, some Pathfinder. Second edition is something I'm still wrapping my head around, and I'm also playing 5e. And when I'm looking at those two compared to Starfinder, one of the things is, why are all the DCs and ACs and everything so low?
Yep. Yep.
It's like, what's going on there?
Oh, that tripped me up during one of my assignments for a thing where, I was writing. I was like, oh, this DC should be this. And I was like, wait a minute. And then I checked archives and was like, That's not how DCs work in Starfinder.
Yeah.
Okay, I need to completely rewrite my assumptions because you're not going to, that DC of 30 or DC of 40 at, let's say eighth level, let's say between sixth and eighth level in Pathfinder 2e, that's going to be a risky throw.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
we're
that's gonna be really
talking
hard.
at least we're talking at least like a 10 or higher. Well, no, we're talking probably at least a 15 or higher with Pathfinder. But for Starfinder, like, they can hit that easily because their skills are so high in comparison.
Yeah.
So it's it can knock you for a loop. It can knock you for a real loop. Also, the names of the skills, oh my god. Like, and like, I love it, but it's like, this skill should be this, and it's like, okay, but it's not. Because this one is an old, this one is referencing stuff that was like in 3.5 and uses
Right.
still a lot of that 3.5 language, which drives my brain nuts because I'm trying to remember, like, oh, how do I reference DCs? How do I reference sense motive? How do I reference this? And it's like, oh no, this is different stuff between the two. And you just got to keep an eye on it. Check, I always check archives or check your books. As you can kind of see back there, I have a pretty full library of books to go through. So just, sit down, reference them, make sure you know your stuff. And insofar as the challenges, like the specific challenges, I just not having the exact same grip on the system in the way that I have for Pathfinder 2e. Like, Pathfinder 2e, you could be like, hey, what's this? And I might have to look it up, but I'll have a good idea and I can reference, like, oh, it's probably this. Let me confirm its exact wording. Give me like a spell and I'd be like, it probably does this. Let me just make sure of what it does. Or, or if my players can get out of it, or, what do they have to roll to that sort of thing. Like, what kind of saves do they have to roll, etc.
No, I hear you on that. So, Paizo's been working a lot harder to be cognizant of representation in, all their projects now. And Strengths of Thousands is a prime example. They got a lot of Black authors to work on that. It was kind of something they really, really focused on. How do you think that they're doing now? And what do you think they could be doing better? Have you thought about the work they're doing? I know other companies have run into some big issues. I mean, 5e's ran into a really big issue with Spelljammer and stuff. But I think Paizo's trying to make some good inroads. But what's your thinking on that?
Besides me yelling, species is not a better term than race. Knock it the hell off, which is my default response when people ask, like, hey, what is like 5e? What are 5e doing wrong? Species is not a better term than race. Anyway, but specifically for like Paizo as a company, honestly, I think they're trying their best. I think that their leadership is, at least from my view, a little stuck in the past in terms of what they expect gamers to want. Like, they didn't have the orc issue, right? The big orc, issue.
Right.
But the reality is that I think a lot of gamers are absolutely sick of any races, or, well, any ancestries, any monsters that are 100% evil, right? Like, you do not. A lot of people these days are like, no, why can't I be friends with the kobolds? Like, why can't I be friends with the goblins? Why can't I be friends with the orcs? Why can't, And I think that as more and more people who are, frankly, like, elder millennial-y types are starting to get into seats of power. And when I say power, I mean like devs or creative director or, things like that. We're going to see a lot of that change, and we're going to see a lot more diversity, but not, it's going to be diversity in terms of here are the different ways you can engage with the world. There is no one way. Like, there is no one way to approach the orcs in, north of Last Wall, because you might meet one tribe that are completely psychotic and warlike, but you might meet another tribe that's totally like, no, dude, we're all like chaotic good. Why would we not be? Or maybe there's a clutch of them that are like nature preservists and want to protect, and grow and nurture. That is what I think people want these days, right? I think as tabletop RPGs are changing, we are, at least my hopes, is that we are leaving behind the old stereotypes, the old, this monster does this, and they always do that. And there is no example within that ancestry, within that group, that is different than that. We're sick of it. Like, we got to be done. I'm a 41-year-old man. Like, I've hit the point where my brain has started to calcify, and I'm fine with that, because
don't say that. I'm way older than you, man.
but the reason I say that is because like, I am set in my tabletop RPG ways in certain respects. But what I'm seeing a lot of these people bring to the table, like, why is it that orcs are always the bad guys? Why is it that gnolls are always the bad guys? Why are we creating these societies that are set up to just be targets? And especially as we get into more stuff that has to do with, because in my opinion, everything is political, right? Everything. You cannot have ideas that are not informed by bias. Even if that bias is, I don't want to take a political stance, that is a political stance, right? So if you are in a situation where your ideology sets up a specific entire ancestry of people as those things are completely bad, you run into some major issues, because you are making what is a political choice within your game, right? You are saying, my political stance in this is that this particular group is awful and can be exterminated. That is where I run into a lot of issues. But do I think that, Paizo as a company are trying to pull out of any sort of that nosedive and actually trying to course correct? Absolutely. I mean, like, I put it like this. When I see the work that Luis is doing, when I see the work that Eleanor is doing, when I see the work that Jessica is doing, when I see the work that Shay is doing, when I see the work that all of these amazing, developers and editors and like Avi is like my favorite person on the goddamn earth. And like, you can tell them I said that because I don't give a shit. Like, I love them. They're great. And they're bringing their real skill in order to make Galarion and, the greater like Starfinder system, the Pact Worlds, actually feel good. And actually feel like, no, this is lived in. This is how the world really is. And they're injecting just enough of that with the fantastical elements to make it feel fun and to give players, I think, a much richer and deeper experience. And then a lot of them get pushed back because there's people who are like, well, I just want to, genocide every Skittermander. And it's like, why? Why? The Skittermanders, they're wonderful. I want like 200 plushies. Don't, no, these things are wonderful. And, just because you as a player have a problem with cuteness, which is a thing that occasionally comes up, like, no, like, these things are great. And if you want to say that there is a group of them that are really, really bad, cool. That is actually a great story, is that a group of these Skittermanders have now decided that they are going to, maybe attack the Viscarium. They're going to, a Skittermander terrorist cell who are just, and like, I probably shouldn't have given that idea out because I really want somebody to write that, and nobody from Paizo is going to take that idea now. But that sounds freaking dope as like an AP.
There's actually a scenario that's kind of related with that,
Mm-hmm.
but the terrorist cell is they everything that bad happens. They were actually trying to do something good, and it just kind of went wrong, and so now they think they're terrorists. So,
oh yeah, see, and that to me is also a good way to do that, because it makes you question like your assumptions about what's going on. Like, okay, wait, what is actually happening in this scenario? Oh well, this, I'm gonna use Skittermanders because I freaking love Skittermanders. The Skittermanders are, doing this thing, and somebody from the Viscarium, maybe they got a new commander or whatever to, who's the overlord of the Skittermander world, and the Skittermander were like, no, we're sick of this. Like, we are more than willing to help, we're more than willing to like give of our resources, we want to share, but this person is a bad person and we need to stop them. And then playing an entire, like, I would actually make it AP length to be like, oh, like in this AP, you are fighting back, as what is essentially terrorist against the Viscarium to get rid of this, overlord because he's a monster. That is good storytelling. That is fun. And it shows the Skittermanders are more than just a joke race, or a joke ancestry. It's really cool if they play with stories like that, and if they give deep, rich, narratives. On the Pathfinder side, like, this is kind of a trope, I guess, but going after Cheliax, which Cheliax is known as like a slave-keeping race or a slave-keeping society, and they're bad, and but no, go after Cheliax. Go after Cheliax all day. That's great. Do that. But make there be like, or have there be like, hey, our characters are playing freedom fighters who want to liberate Cheliax, not just, or that, make that be an in-play option.
Right.
So like something like Hell's Rebels, kind of. But you allow it to play out to its natural conclusion of like, no, they took down Cheliax. Like, Cheliax, in the context of SAP, has been defeated. Right. That's a really good story, and it empowers liberation, which I think is an idea that maybe some of the folks within like the Paizo structure can occasionally think more about the tradition of, like the internal consistency of Galarion, or the internal consistency of the Pack Worlds, of the Viscarium, rather than thinking of, hey, what kind of liberative stories can we tell? I would love more APs about Pathfinders giving back. Like, there was a cartoon. Oh, it was Carmen Sandiego, but it was like a weird flip on the. It was a flip on the premise of like she was stealing things, but she was stealing things that were like from museums, and she was like going and giving them back to the people. like going and give it,
Okay.
so she
Right,
would
right,
steal
right.
like some Inca artifact and then take it back to like Inca representatives who could then do what they wanted, who could then like, either put it in their museums or, put it back in the shrine it belonged to, or, whatever. That sort of stuff I'm a sucker for. Like, you
Mhm.
write that into your APs, you write that into your scenarios, you write that into your bounties, put that in my veins. Like, that might be enough to make me like be like, maybe some society play will be a good idea because this is, so yeah.
Well, there
I could
are
talk
some
about this
broad
forever.
there are some pretty broad story arcs in society that might encompass some of those things. So,
Yeah,
you
definitely.
should keep an eye out. You never know. You might find something you like.
Well, I know that a couple people have been announced into society that I am super excited to see what they bring to the table. Shay Snow specifically,
Yep.
I am very excited to see what they bring to the table
Yep. Yep.
because they know their stuff and they are as passionate as I am in some respects about getting like liberative and liberation stories out and onto the page and having players play through them,
Hmm. Hmm.
you know. And then
Well,
if you
cool.
want to do like, if you want to do like, X amount of scenarios about liberation and then, one or two that are about like, no, this is, you can play the bad guys. I know you can't play evil in Pathfinder Society, but,
Right.
as specials or whatever they call them to be like, no, we resist the good guys. That would actually be kind of interesting from a certain perspective. And maybe some people would be into that. I don't know if that'd be a game I'd play, but I'm not the only person in tabletop, so I don't want, But yeah,
So,
so
what advice do you have for people interested in getting started into freelance writing like you have?
I mean, a lot of people's sort of default advice is, always be writing and always try to write stuff and always try to read, read
Yeah.
everything. If the only RPG you've ever played is Pathfinder, you're doing it wrong. If the only RPG you've ever played is under the if the only RPGs I should say you've ever played are under the D20 oeuvre, you're doing
Hmm.
it wrong. Like, I mean, a lot of people will say like, oh, that's okay, like that's good experience. No, you need to branch out. You need to try Savage Worlds. You need to try, Besum. You need to try, you know, the World of Darkness, because you need to see what all of these different things bring to the table, and
Hmm.
all of that stuff enhances your writing, all of it. And so a lot of people will say like, oh, just pick a groove and sort of fall into that groove with writing, and I'm like, nah, that's never worked for me. What works for me is having a very broad um understanding of what makes what work in terms of like horror settings or action or comedy or whatever, and then work that into your writing. But that requires reading. That requires people to actually sit down and read different RPGs, read different books, read books outside your culture. Don't assume that you reading a book from outside your culture makes you an expert on that culture, but read them anyway. Read things that are challenging, read things that are upsetting. Figure out what about those things is challenging or upsetting to you, and investigate those feelings, because that is where the good writing you have inside you will come out. So, yeah.
Cool. So, what's next for Shan? What kind of cool things are you working on that you can actually discuss?
Uh, I'm working on some stuff for the Valor system. Um, they just had a Kickstarter. So if you check under Valor for Kickstarter or Valor RPG, you will find fantastic work and great people to work with. So we're working on some stuff with them. I am forever in development on my. I'm writing a mecha RPG called Iron Stars Burning Hearts. That is, I believe the word is doujinshi in Japanese. It's like girls anime, like because girls anime I think is like all about like love and romance and relationships. It's that, but with mecha.
Okay.
And then I'm writing a setting for Pathfinder 2E that is going to reference a lot of the like almost like game show style mechanics in terms of, if you think of X Crawl, if you remember that far back in the 3.5 days. Remember that one? Okay. Well, X Crawl basically literalized the dungeons as cash and prizes. Your characters were, it was a modern day game, well, modern day-ish, but it had like all of the monsters from like the D&D world had survived into modernity, and a lot of them would get jobs at like working for dungeons where they would, basically, your mom and pop would, compete to get cash and prizes by fighting monsters, and it was actually really cool. I'm a huge fan of like Smash TV and The Running Man and things like that. So it was like that, but as a D&D supplement. And I was thinking something along those lines, but more fantasy based, like something that was more like in a fantasy actual world. So, yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, Shan, it's been great getting a chance to meet you and get to know you a little bit better. And thanks so much for joining us on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me. This was a blast. I was real nervous, and now I'm like, woo, this is great. So.